A former NFL quarterback calls out Caleb Williams in one of his biggest flaws from last season. We talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to continue grading the confidence level that we have in each of the Bears position groups, this time staying on the defense and talking about the secondary. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And Matt Hasselbeck, right? Say what you will about Matt Hasselbeck. He was on the Colin Cowherd show talking about Caleb Williams, and he said this: sacks hurt your team. They hurt your offensive line. They hurt the morale. They hurt your body. But it's also very bad on the defense. I thought if we were assigning blame to why there were so many sacks last year in Chicago, the majority of the sacks were not the fault of the offensive line. They were the fault of the young quarterback. Now, this is an interesting point to make when you come down to it because, we'll see what happens there, right? Like Matt, there's no doubt that Caleb Williams held onto the ball too long sometimes, right? But I do think anybody saying that the majority of the sacks were on Caleb Williams are a little more focused on narrative than fact. Right now, here's the thing: Matt Hasselbeck also went on to question Matt Eberflus's leadership, saying this: number two for me would probably be the overall leadership. We're looking at you. I mentioned body language. That bothers me. That really bothered me how he handled last year. And here's the thing. And I've said this about Caleb Williams. Regardless of how you feel about this or not, I do think some of this is bullshit, to be 100% honest with you. But regardless of how you say about it, this is where we are. Like, rookie quarterbacks are no longer allowed to make mistakes. And that's what it really feels like, especially when you have rookies that come out the gate playing in the way that they have. When you look at great rookie seasons from like C.J. Stroud, Jaden Daniels, right? These are just over the last couple of years. You want to go a little bit further than that. Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, right? These are guys that have had really solid rookie seasons in the NFL. And so you look at how Caleb Williams was thrown out there, the nonsensical offense, to say that the offensive line, which allowed the amount of pressure that it did allow, even if Caleb Williams did hold on to the ball too long, the pressure rate was ridiculous, right? And he does deserve criticism for holding on to the ball too long. I want to be clear there. He needs to hold on. He needs to hold criticism for that. But to say that when you look at the sacks, right, there's a little bit of question of that how you want to. Now, I know the Caleb deniers are going to be on fire in the comment section, typing away while they have no lives, and that's perfectly fine. But when you look at, like, for example, Matt Hasselbeck, the most that he was ever sacked in his career was 42. 42. And he played behind Hall of Fame coaches in Mike Holmgren, Pete Carroll, guys like that, right? And while people are going to say you should cut Caleb Williams some slack, here's the thing. Was Caleb Williams at fault for some of the sacks that he took? Absolutely. Was he at fault for a nice percentage of the sacks he took? Absolutely. Was he at fault for sometimes the body language thing, as Ben Johnson has already talked to him about? Absolutely. So while I'll disagree with some of the things here that Matt Hasselbeck said and the way that he said it, I'm going to be clear here. Like I said, this isn't a platform to glaze any Chicago Bears player, because I don't believe that's how you get ready. Even when your head coach, your new head coach, you're one of the players that he talks to about the importance of body language. And we talked about how, like, being on the ground that much, like, hey, help him from being off the ground. But Caleb is going to have to, and this is what I talked a little bit about last night on Bleacher Report, is Caleb Williams, if you want to be great in this league, then you have to shore up the things that you have to do. You have to control those things, no matter how much narrative is around them or not. That's the job. That's the position. That's the NFL. And it's not even just there for quarterbacks. It's all positions, but it's a magnifying glass on it when you are a quarterback in the league, and that's just period. So, I know some of these things, it sucks to hear. It sucks to hear that the way that Caleb Williams is talked about in some instances, but Caleb hasn't. I mean, let's not act like he didn't hold himself back. Well, he didn't affect the team negatively at times. And that's the thing. That's the markings of what can make you a good quarterback or a great quarterback, is how well do you take that criticism and how much do you work on that year after year. There's nothing given for raw skill in the NFL. There's just not. And Caleb Williams has tons of raw skill, but it has to be more than that if you're going to want to turn into something meaningful in this league. If you're going to want to turn into one of the greats, as Caleb Williams has said that he wants to be in this league, it's not going to come via things just being easy for you. Guess what? You're going to have to deal with the adversity. You're going to have to deal with some of the bullshit. You're going to have to deal with some of the criticism around your game. You're going to have to deal with all of that. If you want to be great in this league, it's going to have to take through the work, determination, and getting out of your own way sometimes. And Caleb has a lot that he has to do with that this season. But, for some Bears fans that want to be more clickbaity, right, will say things like, oh my God, Caleb is bad. He can't complete a forward pass. Yeah, you're a fucking idiot. Listen, and that's just the way it is. I told you, I'm not being nice in 2025. Definitely not nice in 2026. That's the Bears players. That's to some of you people as well, right? But when it comes down to it, we're not going to act like Caleb Williams is some great finished product yet where he has it all together, because he does not. Caleb has a lot that he needs to work on in this second year. And hopefully the goal of a franchise, the goal of a front office is to eliminate as many questions so you can evaluate. And the Bears, to their credit, of Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, whoever you want to give credit to, they've shored up the offensive line. So now, unless there's injuries or something crazy goes on with that offensive line, or all the veterans that we sign all see a steep fall off from year to year, it's going to put more of a magnifying glass on, all right, Caleb, we went out here and invested heavily in our offensive line. Are you still holding on to the ball too long? Do you got the yips? What's going on here, right? The ability to process down the field. You now have better weapons, both on the outside. You got interior weapons. You have better route runners than Luther Burden and Colston Loveland than you had last year. You got guys that, hey, they can get yards after the catch, like we talked about yesterday. So now your job is to, as a quarterback, put the ball in their hands, make the proper decisions, make the proper reads. We got you check down options. We got you down the field options. We got you middle of the field options. What pick your poison. What are you going to do? We got you a creative play caller in Ben Johnson, and then the next, who could be the next Ben Johnson, and Declan Doyle. So we got you what you need. Like, I don't know what else of an environment that you can create. Yeah, the running game isn't necessarily going to be the top in the league, but guess what? It's going to see a better impact because better play calling, better offensive line. So you're going to see better out your running game as well. So I feel like this Bears staff, between coaches, between front office, between whatever you want to label it at, has done a much better job at putting the right things around Caleb, because now all eyes are on Caleb. All eyes are already on Caleb, but now more so it's magnified because you have a wide receiver room that fits and is one of the deepest wide receiver rooms that we've ever had in Chicago. You got two tight ends, so we go to 12-man personnel that should be safe. We got you an amazing route runner in Colston Loveland, and we got you a slot in Luther Burden with Olamide Zaccheaus coming there too. So you cannot continue to see Caleb has no excuse not to make a step this year. Now, how big of a step that is, we'll see. We talked about the article from Kevin Patra not too long ago, where it's like, okay, it's 9 months too much to ask for Caleb to turn everything around under Ben Johnson, and we shall see with that. But there's no excuse not to take some type of meaningful step this year. There's just not. Better coaching, better line, better weapons, deeper weapons, improvements. And a year of you now understanding the work that it needs to go into this to be a really good quarterback in this league. So it's I've said this many times before. I think I just said it a little bit early on the show. The job of a front office is to eliminate as many questions as possible year after year. And let's not even talk about what we did on the defensive side of the ball, right? We're trying to improve that defensive line. What we did in special teams, trying to improve that has an impact as well on your quarterback, on your offense. So it's all on Caleb. It's all I'm not saying the overall all the team's success or failure is on Caleb. I'm saying that Caleb is in a situation to develop. Even last year, people were saying that the Bears created one of the best situations that a number 1 overall pick was coming into. One of the problems there was coaching. Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron were idiots, and that was one of the problems there. But now you have shored that up as well with getting better coaches. So the doubt's going to be there around Caleb. He's going to get some praise. He's going to get some doubt depending on who's interviewed, who's asked. Now the job for Caleb Williams is to zero in, focus, which it already seems like he is, building that rapport with your new head coach, getting your team on path, and being ready to be a leader. If you can't be a leader of this offense, it's going to be glaring. It's going to be glaring. It's going to be more and more evident with all the improvements that the Bears continue to make. And luckily, you have a GM as well in Ryan Poles that is never afraid to tinker with the roster if need be. So I look at this and I say for Caleb, it's just, hey, have some faith. He showed a lot of talent last year, despite what some people will tell you. And, I saw somebody who left a dumbass comment like, well, 12 of the losses last year were on Caleb. He had 12 bad games. It's like, you can't tell me that you actually watch football and you think all those losses were on Caleb Williams. You there's no way. I won't have that conversation with you. I won't even entertain it. If that's legitimately a thought that your brain has processed, then you're stupid. And I'm not finna even entertain that. You can go talk to the wall. Go talk to your one titty auntie, because I ain't got nothing here for you. So we shall see what Caleb does. But Caleb needs to grow this season. Caleb needs to put it all on him and go out there and show what he can bring. So we'll see what happens with that one. But I want to go to something else. Let's move off of Caleb before we start talking about the Bears secondary a little bit. Jeff Hughes, who's become one of my favorite Bears writers over the last 3 months, he wrote something in regards to Montez Sweat and something in regards to what his performance last year. Not an excuse, but something that could add some color to it, right? Saying this: the Bears had more sacks than the Chiefs, Lions, and the Bills last year, and they have significantly upgraded their defensive line, defensive coaching staff, and defensive line talent. The most important thing to track at camp is how Dennis Allen is utilizing his defensive line personnel. The second most important thing to track will be the health of Montez Sweat. Sweat dealt with a number of injuries in 2024 and has had health concerns since entering the league. The 2025 Bears need him at full strength. Now, this is something that we've heard a little bit about before, is the health of Montez Sweat. And that it's not always, while he's been able to play, it hasn't always been tip-top. Now, one could say it's Jeff Hughes writing an excuse for Montez Sweat in the season that he had last year. I already know there's going to be that. But regardless of the reasons, right? Let's take the reasons and put them to the side here for a second. There's no doubt that Montez Sweat needs to have a better performance and a better stat tracking year than what he had in 2024. I think most people are going to agree with that. And luckily now the Bears have invested in that defensive line. Dayo Odeyingbo, Grady Jarrett, right? Adding those names there. And I always say when Dayo comes up, this was a guy that Dennis Allen wanted here in Chicago. This is a guy that Dennis Allen identified early in the offseason that he was the guy that he, in his system, he wanted on the opposite side of Montez Sweat. And we'll see what ends up shaking out with that. There's no doubt that Montez needs to be better. And his health, that's been something that's been rumblings about. And Montez is going to have to do what he needs to do to keep his health together. And, I'm sure that there are a number of NFL players, and this isn't to excuse it or to just wipe it away and say it doesn't matter, but everybody's dealing with injuries after the start of the season. There's very few NFL players that are fully healthy. We're talking about nothing ailing them, no pain, no nothing after week 2 or 3 of the league. It just is what it is. These are 200-pound men running into each other every single play. Sometimes 250-pound men running into each other every single play, right? So it's a lot of nagging injuries that happen over the course of the season. And especially with somebody like Montez Sweat, who was able to be double-teamed as much as he was because there was no consistent pressure from the middle or from the opposite side of Montez Sweat. Now getting that more consistently is going to be important to not only keeping Montez Sweat fresh, but also Montez Sweat giving and performing at the level that we know that Montez Sweat has the capability of doing. Now, there's a lot of doubt. One thing about Bears fans, I love y'all, but one thing Bears fans are going to do, they're going to doubt a motherfucker, right? And so I see Bears fans say things like, there's not a single team in the league that views Montez Sweat as an above-average defensive line, but the Bears paid him this much money. Shut the fuck up. You know what I am more than anything is I'm tired of stupid people. And you realize in doing this job, one thing that you realize is there are a lot of stupid people that like to talk about sports, but they don't actually like processing and watching sports at a high enough level, at the level that to match how much they want to flap their lips at. It's just evident. It's every single day. You can tell, I'm sure a lot of you see it in the comment section as well. You can always spot out the person who doesn't actually watch NFL games, but looks at the stat sheet, reads a blog from XYZ, and then goes on to say, oh yeah, this is what happened. I know this. And then you say, yeah, but what about this play? They have no response to that because most people, and to the credit is, most people don't have time to get all in the weeds and details, and that's perfectly fine. The majority of sports fans are casuals. It just is what it is. It's part of the nature of the game. But when you have the things, and it's, like I said, the doubt around Montez is coming internally from Bears fans, it's coming externally, and now Montez got it, much like Caleb Williams. It's time to show and prove. Everything's about showing and proving what you can be in this league day in and day out. It's a year after year. So what have you done for me lately league. Not everybody's going to go to the PFF grades and see what the pressure rate and all this was. They're looking at that number on the stat sheet, and they're trying to determine if what you did based off that number alone. Not everybody got time to get into advanced analytics. That's the job of people who do this, like what we do. We get into the weeds and try to break things down at a deeper level, so to say, so then we can look at things. But overall, we'll see what happens here. Montez has a lot that he can improve on this year, and that just is what it is when it comes down to it. But we shall see. Montez Sweat, much like I said about Caleb Williams, this is the year that Montez has to step up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Montez Sweat has to be better this year, and hopefully that we've made the right additions to that defensive line as well as better play callers to now get in a place where Montez can focus more on getting the production that he needs. I'm not even expecting 12.5 sacks for Montez Sweat. Not even expecting that, right? I think that if Montez can come in here and have a solid 8-9 sack season, I think that is a minimum of what you look at as productivity for still a defensive line that still has questions, right? We graded it yesterday. So, we'll see what happens with that one. We'll see what happens with Montez. Overall, I hope that Montez has a much better year this year than last year, and we shall see what's going to happen. Now, one of the players as well that has a lot of doubt around him is DeAndre Swift. Over on CHSN, they talked about this. Clay Harbor, Alex Shapiro, they said this. As regards to DeAndre Swift, will he be the Bears' number one running back in 2025? I do believe that, but he's the right running back for Ben Johnson. I'm not sure about that. Yes, he's a great pass catcher. He's not great at making guys miss. He's not great at breaking tackles. These are all things that we've said before. We've all seen this with DeAndre Swift. He's not great at breaking tackles. He's not great at running between the tackles. But I do think that in a Ben Johnson system with an improved offensive line, you can see much better from a DeAndre Swift. The question, more importantly, now is going to be how much of even DeAndre, who had over 1,300 yards from scrimmage last year, how much better can he be than that? And can he be functional enough in the framework of a overall back? I don't think we're going to see a running back, a backfield where it's like 90% of the snaps go to DeAndre Swift. I think you're going to see a spread here between Swift, Johnson, Menagai, Willer, whoever ends up being that third guy. You're going to see a split between those guys. I think that's the best place for the Bears to be in right now with the state of their roster and things like that. So we'll see overall what happens. DeAndre Swift is another guy that so many people have doubt around, and there's a reason for that. Go and say this. What happened to him the last time he played with Ben Johnson? Ben Johnson had him for a year, and Ben Johnson said, thank you for your services. DeAndre Swift, we're going to draft Jahmyr Gibbs in the top 15. Thank you. Go to Philadelphia Eagles and have a great time. I think the same thing happens this year, and they're predicting that the Bears go out and draft a running back this year. And Jeremiah Love, which a lot of people are talking about the Bears potentially focusing on next year in the draft. And I'll say this, it's very rare that you hear that much ahead of time and it actually ends up happening, but we shall see. I think Love is going to have a big season this year, and I don't know if the Bears are going to pick in that range, but hopefully they do, and we shall see. But with that said, we're grading going into the confidence level of the position groups on the Chicago Bears heading into training camp. This time we're going to talk about the secondary. So the secondary is broken up into, of course, cornerbacks, safeties, right? And so at the starting safety positions, you have Jaquan, Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson. Of course, Kyler Gordon being a nickel, being one of the better nickels in the game of football. He's going to have a season where he is used incredibly well by Dennis Allen. And Dennis Allen has already talked about how he's going to use him in blitz, line him up as linebacker. Kyler Gordon's going to have a big season. Tyreek Stevenson is hoping to have a bounce back year, learning from the mistakes that he made last year and how, it turned into like the identity of what his season was. Behind those guys at depth, you have Zay Frazier looking to make his way to this team. Terrell Smith, who's been pretty consistent in his role here for the Chicago Bears for a while. Josh Blackwell, Nashawn Wright, who we just talked about like a week ago, that apparently Nashawn Wright is like picture perfect for Dennis Allen's system, and he's been really turning heads down there as well. So you have those guys there at the safety. I feel really good. At the corner. I feel really good about the Bears' corner rotation. I think having Zay Frazier with his size and speed and how he's going to probably be used at 6'3", 186 pounds, he is ready-made for Dennis Allen in his system, and the Bears picked him in the 5th round. Zay Frazier is going to have definitely a pathway here to get snaps for the Chicago Bears. Then let's look at the safety. Kevin Byard, the vet, right, who has played really well for the Chicago Bears. You got Jaquan Brisker, who is coming off a injury-plagued season last year. He was on path to have his 3rd straight year of over 100 tackles as a safety, which is really good. Depth there, you have Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hicks that are depth there. Major Burns, the undrafted free agent that's trying to make his name here, coming from LSU to the Chicago Bears at 6'2", 207 pounds. the confidence level. Let's get to what we're talking about. What is the confidence level 1 through 10 that I have here for the Bears secondary? I came into last season extremely confident for the Bears secondary. If we would have did this last year, I would have graded it a 9. That's how confident I was in the Bears secondary. But then we saw between injuries, things like that, and we saw the importance of how the defensive line affects your pass coverage, right? When the defensive line went down and stopped getting pressure, a lot changed in the secondary on top of losing Jaquan Brisker. And so with the injury history around Jaquan and him being such an important part of the secondary, with Tyreek Stevenson needing to have a bounce back year, it's affected a little bit. But I'm still very high on the secondary overall. I will grade this secondary as far as the confidence level in them and what they can be this year, as far as blitzing, being used creatively. Dennis Allen's going to put 7, 8 defensive backs out there at times. I see that this is a year where that everything that we think that this secondary can be is going to be maximized. Jalen Johnson finally not just going to be in zone, going to be doing more man things, more on-ball things. Because of all of that, it kind of overtakes the question things that I have in regards to the injury stuff. But I still say I'd put this at about an 8 this season coming into it. A whole point down than what I would have had it last year just because of the injuries and stuff like that. Kevin Byard's still very productive, but at some point that slide's going to happen. But yeah, that's where I put it. I think I still feel very, very highly, though, on this position group. But let me know down below if you're on the YouTube side, what is your confidence level in the Chicago Bears secondary heading into the 2025 season? Let me know that down below. That's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.